Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually going on inside the device you're watching this on right now? We're going to go on a pretty incredible journey, shrinking all the way down to the atomic level to uncover the secrets that really power our world.
I mean, really think about it. Deep inside the silicon of your processor, there's this invisible drama playing out. Trillions upon trillions of times, every single second. It's a tiny journey that makes absolutely everything you do with technology possible.
So, who's the hero of our story? Well, it's this little guy, the charge carrier. And most of the time, that's just a tiny, energetic electron. It's on a mission, carrying the electrical information that is, and this is no exaggeration, the absolute lifeblood of all modern electronics.
Now, what's really interesting is how our source material frames this whole microscopic universe. It uses this fascinating philosophical lens of divine balance, or al-mizan. The whole idea is that the super-precise, harmonious laws that govern our little carrier's journey, well, they aren't random. They reflect a fundamental order in creation. So let's dive in and see how this balance actually plays out in the physics of it all.
Okay, first things first. What even gets our tiny charge carrier moving? How does it know where to go? It's not just wandering around aimlessly. Turns out, it all comes down to two fundamental forces that are basically its guides.
So on one side, you've got drift. The easiest way to think about this is like a steady wind at the carrier's back, always pushing it in one direction. That wind, that's an electric field. And on the other side, you've got diffusion. This one is super intuitive. Imagine you're in a really crowded room. What do? You naturally start moving towards the empty space, right? Well, that is exactly what charge carriers do. They move from where it's crowded to where it's not. And the rule for drift is honestly beautifully simple. This little equation here, all it's really saying is that the stronger you push with that electric field, that's the E, the faster your carrier goes. And that other symbol, the mu, that's called mobility, and it is a huge deal. It's basically a score for how easily the carrier can get through its environment. It's the difference between sprinting on a dry track versus trying to run through a foot of mud. It's the fundamental rule of the road here.
Okay, now this is where things get really cool. See, our carrier doesn't just live anywhere. It's not in a metal, that would be way too chaotic, pretty much impossible to control. And it's definitely not in an insulator, because then it wouldn't be able to move at all. Nope, it lives in a semiconductor. It's the Goldilocks of materials. Not too conductive, not too resistive, but just right. And that precise control is what lets us build all the amazing electronics we have.
But here's the thing. This journey is anything but a smooth ride. The path is just filled with obstacles. It's less like an open highway and a lot more like a chaotic, atomic-sized obstacle course. The very first obstacle is the material itself. You see, the atoms in that crystal aren't just sitting perfectly still. They're constantly vibrating, just shaking all over the place. So our little carrier has to navigate this shaky, trembling maze, and it's constantly at risk of getting bumped or knocked completely off course. So what's the big takeaway here? It is all about heat, temperature. Those vibrations are basically little packets of thermal energy we call phonons. So the hotter your device gets, the more those atoms vibrate, and the more our poor carrier gets smacked around. This slows it down, it reduces its mobility, and that is why your device can start to lag when it gets too hot.
All right, challenge number 2 comes from imperfections. No crystal is ever 100% perfect. And sometimes, engineers will intentionally add foreign atoms, they're called dopants, to control how the material behaves. But either way, these things act like little charged roadblocks, deflecting our carrier and messing up its path.
And the source material gives us a fantastic way to picture this. Think about it. If you're driving slowly, you have to carefully steer around every little pothole. But if you're going really fast, you kind of just fly right over them. It's the same thing for our carrier. When it's cool and moving slowly, these impurities are a big deal. But as it heats up and gains energy, it can just blast right past them. It's a pretty fascinating trade-off.
And the final obstacle? Well, it's other carriers. Yeah, when the material gets really crowded with tons of other electrons all trying to go on their own journeys, you can probably guess what happens. They start bumping right into each other.
And the analogy here is just perfect. It's like trying to walk through Times Square during rush hour. It's impossible not to bump into people, and the whole flow of traffic just slows to a crawl. That's exactly what's happening to our charge carriers on an atomic scale.
So with all this pushing and scattering, you might be thinking, well, why don't we just keep cranking up the electric field to make the carrier go faster and faster? But can it accelerate forever? Well, it turns out there's a speed limit. This is a phenomenon called velocity saturation.
You can keep pushing harder and harder with that electric field, but eventually the carrier just hits a top speed. It cannot go any faster. And why? Because it's colliding with the lattice so violently and so often that any extra energy you give it is immediately just lost as heat. It's like flooring the gas pedal in your car while also slamming on the brakes. You're just not going any faster.
And that speed limit is a real physical number. For an electron moving through silicon, it's about 10 million centimeters per second. Now that is incredibly fast, but it's a hard limit that engineers have to design all our high-speed devices around.
But the journey is not over yet. In fact, this is where it gets truly weird. We're leaving the familiar world of classical physics behind and taking a leap straight into the bizarre, fascinating world of the quantum realm.
Let me ask you a question that kind of breaks our everyday intuition. In our world, if you don't have enough energy to climb over a wall, you can't get to the other side. Simple, right? But what if our carrier could just pass straight through it?
Well, welcome to quantum tunneling. See, because particles like electrons also behave like waves, there's a small but very real probability that they can just appear on the other side of an energy barrier without ever going over it. It's literally like a ghost walking through a wall.
And this ghostly behavior is a true double-edged sword for engineers. On one hand, we actually use it to make things like flash memory work. Tunneling is how data gets written. But on the other hand, as transistors get tinier and tinier, carriers start tunneling where they shouldn't be, causing all sorts of problems like leakage currents that waste power.
So engineers are in this constant battle to try and tame this quantum ghost. They're using clever new materials to make the walls of the transistors effectively thicker, or designing these crazy complex 3D architectures for better control. It's a really high-stakes game of quantum engineering. So, we've followed our charge carrier as it's been pushed and pulled, bounced off atoms, dodged impurities, and even passed right through solid walls. But what's the point of this incredible unseen journey? Why does it even matter to us?
Because it powers everything. The little on-off switch of a transistor in your computer, that's controlling drift. The light coming from your screen, that's carriers releasing energy. The data stored on your phone, yep, that's thanks to quantum tunneling. Every single concept we've talked about is happening right now, inside the device you're holding.
And this brings us right back to the source's core idea of balance. It suggests that understanding these intricate laws of nature isn't just about building faster gadgets. It's also about a kind of stewardship, about appreciating the profound order that exists in the universe and our responsibility within it.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. When we understand the incredible, mind-boggling balance required for just one single electron to complete its journey, how does that change our perspective on the technology we build? How can we use this knowledge not just to innovate, but to create a future that is more sustainable, more ethical, and maybe a little more in balance with our world? It's something to think about the next time you power on your device.